So Garmin's Forerunner 570 and 970 have finally made their way to the studio, and these have been hotly anticipated Forerunners for a few months now. And in this video, I'm just going to quickly unbox these, check out some of those hardware and software changes that Garmin have made compared to their predecessors, and I'll probably take them out for a really quick run just to try and get an initial feel of what these are like when you're out and about. Right, so starting off with the Forerunner 570. So this is going to be a direct successor to the Forerunner 265 that came out I think in 2023, and I've been using this quite a lot over the last couple of years, so it's going to be a really nice and detailed testing period for me between the new 570 and the older 265. Now this 570 comes in two different sizes: a smaller 42mm version similar to the 265S from a couple of years ago, and a larger 47mm version, which I've got here now. And this color is what Garmin call indigo aluminium with translucent imperial purple, but I'm just gonna call it purple. It's a fairly standard Garmin packaging here with cardboard. On opening it, we've got the 570 as expected in this really cool purple color, and there's two boxes on the side. One's for your proprietary charger similar to all the other Garmin's coming out these days, and some manuals in the other box, which I'm probably gonna ignore. And some of the other colors in the other sizes are a bit brave, to say the least. Now moving on to the 970, which I've got here. This comes just in one size, a 47mm version, and I've got this in the French grey casing with the soft gold bezel. There's two other colors, a black and a white, but I thought this was a bit more interesting with the grey casing, so really keen to unbox this. But before I do that, just wanted to mention this is a direct successor to the Forerunner 965 that came out roughly the same time as the 265. So this 970 is now the top of the line running watch that you can get from Garmin in 2025. Very similar packaging to the 570, and there you go. So that's the French grey with the soft gold bezel that you can get with the Forerunner 970. Right, so in terms of pricing, the prices have actually increased for both of these new watches compared to the retail pricing of their predecessors. So the 570 will cost you $550 US or 460 pounds here in the UK, and on the other hand, the 970 will set you back $750 or 630 pounds in the UK. There's also a new chest strap released by Garmin along with both of these watches called the HRM 600, which will set you back $170 US or 150 pounds, and that's important to note because I'll get to that later on in this video. So these are not cheap Forerunners by any means, and the 970 especially is getting really close to the Phoenix 8's pricing. Anyway, I'm gonna boot these up and set these up really quickly. Right, so whilst these are booting up, I'm gonna quickly talk about the hardware changes on both of these watches. Now, these are slightly heavier than their predecessors, the 265 and the 965, but the differences are minimal. I think it's just 3 to 4 grams. And looking at the 570, the screen size is a teensy bit larger than the one we had on the 265. The 970, on the other hand, retains the 47mm display that we had on the 965 previously, and Garmin say that this is the brightest AMOLED display they've put in any Forerunner watch. So differences in brightness whilst we're out and about should be visible, and I'll check that out later on when I go for my quick run. But I've set these up properly now, and whilst we're still talking about displays, the resolution of the 570 screen is going to be higher than the previous generation 265s, and it's actually equal to the 970's display resolution. And the glass here is still going to be made of Corning's Gorilla Glass 3, similar to the one we had on the Forerunner 265. Another thing that I wanted to point out is the bezel around the 570 is now made of aluminium, whereas previously on the 265 it was made of plastic. That's not the case for the Forerunner 970. The display here is actually now made of sapphire glass compared to the 965's Corning's Gorilla Glass DX. So this is going to be more durable than the 965 from a couple of years ago. and more durable than the new 570 as well. Resolution, like I said, is exactly the same, and the bezel here on the 970 is still a titanium bezel, very similar to the one we had on the 965. Oh, another new thing coming to both of these watches is that they now have a microphone as well as a speaker, so you can make and receive calls as well as give voice commands to both of these watches to perform certain functions. So that's a really cool addition now coming to the Forerunner series of watches. Now, battery life has always been a really strong feature of Forerunner watches, but on this occasion it's a bit of a mixed bag. You see, the older 265 was rated to last up to 13 days in smartwatch mode, whereas the new 570 is rated for just 11 days. Now, the battery rating has remained the same for multi-band use and gone up by a couple of hours if you do use music with location tracking on. So it's not all bad news. And it's a very similar story here for the 970, where the battery rating has gone down for daily use. And I'm not really sure why this battery rating has gone down. Maybe it's the increased brightness of these new AMOLED displays, or it's the new generation of sensors at the back of both of these watches. I'm not really sure. We'll need to test that out in depth. And speaking of the new generation of sensors, both the 570 as well as the 970 now get the Elevate V5 or the Gen 5 suite of sensors, which is a major upgrade compared to the older 265 as well as the 965. So here's a really quick comparison of what these look like. So the blue one is the generation 4 or version 4, and the purple one on the 570 is the newer version. And here's the back of the 970 on this side and the 965 with the older generation of sensors. So increased heart rate sensor accuracy is something I'm looking forward to on both of these new Forerunners. Now, part of that upgrade to the Elevate V5 suite of sensors is the inclusion of skin temperature monitoring, which both of these wearables are getting, and also the inclusion of ECG support, which unfortunately only the 970 gets, and that too only in certain select countries. Now, the other major upgrade, which only the 970 gets, by the way, is the inclusion of an LED flashlight very similar to the Phoenix 8 as well as the Instinct 3 series of watches. This is a really good feature which you don't know you need unless you actually need it. So you can use it for things like running outdoors, where the LED flashlight can be used for safety if you're running late at night or early in the morning during winters, and even for DIY where you might need some light in some really tricky conditions and areas, which I've actually used with the Instinct 3. So that's all the key hardware changes out of the way, and moving on to the software side of things, both the 970 and the 570 get Garmin's upgraded operating system and software with elements of the Phoenix 8 lineup built into it. And you've also got the return of Garmin's glances, where you can see summarized views of your different health, performance and recovery metrics. Now, one of the major upgrades to metrics in this case is the addition of a new metric called the running tolerance, which determines the impact each run has on your body, considering your acute as well as chronic training loads. And this is really important in understanding if you're overtraining or undertraining. Overtraining, as you know, might lead to injuries, and I think this is a really important one for people who are gradually building up their running tolerance week by week and training up for a specific event over a longer period. Now, another new metric coming to these watches is running economy, which measures the overall efficiency of your runs, and this measures several other factors and computes a running economy figure. One of those factors is another new metric called the step speed loss. There's rain in the background, which you can probably hear in the mic, and it's probably going to ruin my run after I film this. Step speed loss measures how much you're slowing down as your foot hits the ground. Now, one interesting decision made by Garmin is that those new metrics are only coming to the Forerunner 970, not the 570, unfortunately, and you'd need to buy the HRM 600 chest strap in order to get the step speed loss and therefore the running economy metrics. So you're gonna have to spend an additional $170 or around 150 pounds in the UK to make the most of those new metrics coming on the 970. Interesting decision, like I said. Now, another difference between both of these watches is that only the 970 gets full upgraded as well as dynamic colored offline mapping for your outdoor activities, whereas the 570 still gets those squiggly breadcrumb lines for navigating, just like the 265 did a couple of years ago. So Garmin's differentiating between both of these watches in several different ways. Now, both of these Forerunners also get an evening report, which presumably will prepare you for the next day with a reminder of the sleep needed, tomorrow's workout, weather report, and events. Right, so I'm not going to dive into the activity profiles available on both of these watches because I'm itching to go out on a run before this rain gets any worse. So see you in a bit. Right, so I'm just back from a quick run using the Forerunner 970, the 570, and I also had the 265 with me for a really quick comparison. I couldn't take my 965 out with me because it just wasn't charged enough in time, and I was just dying to test these out as quickly as I could. And one of the very first things that I noticed between the 265, the older one, and the newer 570 is the difference in brightness. So you know what? I honestly thought it was a marketing gimmick by Garmin saying that this is their brightest OLED, but the difference in brightness is quite noticeable outdoors. And the same goes for the 970, really bright and crisp display. I've also managed to extract the heart rate data between the older Elevate V4 heart rate sensor on the 265 and the newer Elevate V5 on the 570. And as you can see, all of them have picked up the rise in my heart rate really quickly at the start of my run, and they've picked up most of my peaks and troughs during these interval sessions. There's just a couple of moments here and here where the 970 showed a very slight delay in picking up the rapid rise in my heart rate as I started the next interval session. But overall, it looks really good to me for the 570 as well as the 970. I haven't tested these out yet with the Garmin HRM 600 chest strap or my Polar H10 chest strap to do a proper analysis with ECG technology, which I will be doing the next few runs, and I will be posting that analysis in my full in-depth reviews as well as comparisons of these two watches. So there you go, folks, a really quick unboxing and a first run experience using the Forerunner 970 as well as the 570. Now, if you're new to this channel, make sure you press that subscribe button, especially if you don't want to miss out on my epic comparisons between the Forerunner 265, the 965, as well as these two new Forerunners, the 570 and the 970 from Garmin. See you in the next one.